You're listening to Achtung, Millwall, broadcasting from the beautiful South Birmingham. Accept no substitute.
So, I think with 17 games to go, I've spoken to the players in there. Do we want to be an average-ish mid-table team? I certainly don't, and I would like to think that there's some players in there that really don't want to do that. We've got 17 games to prove it. It's easy me standing in front of the camera saying it. But we've got to go and show it, and we've got to go and prove it. And in both boxes in the Championship, you have to be ruthless. I can talk a lot about some of the things that go on in the game, and what I would say to someone like Mitrovic, you might look and say, he's a bit niggly and he does this and does that. But you know what? He's ruthless and he knows how to win a game. And he's got that little bit of nastiness that it takes sometimes to win games of football at this league, as well as the quality. And I just think we just lacked a tiny bit of that today and in previous games. So we've got to find it. It's something we need to improve on.
Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Achtung Millwall. In the wake of possibly the most predictable result of the season, our annual trip to Fulham it's really only about how many goals we concede there, dear listeners, isn't it? 3-0 last night. That voice you've just heard was our manager, Gary Rowett, referring to the existential dilemma that is called Millwall following. Are we or are we not just a mid-table side? Kind of drifting along in the becalmed seas of the Mid-Atlantic. Joining me to debate that philosophical point is a philosophical man himself, Mr. Ryan Loftus. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm very well, Nick. How are you?
Well, I'm still reeling from last night's result, to be honest, and I don't know why I'm reeling because I think I probably predicted it beforehand. Joining us also is by public demand, Harry. You have a fan base out of people actually tune in to listen to the man himself. It's Mr. Harry Warren. How are you doing, H?
Yeah, I'm good. I took a slight break.
You did
of watching, and I returned for Preston and Fulham. So I'm a glutton for punishment, if not anything else.
I've called it the most predictable result of the season. I don't know if either of you two boys would disagree with that, but last night felt like a script of a very tired film or soap opera series where you've seen the same episode over and over. My wife is watching the follow-up to Sex and the City at the moment, which feels like every episode is exactly the same as it ever was. And she stretched it out to a 13-part series. Good luck to the woman. Sarah Jessica. I can't think of a name, but it's like that. Last night felt like that, Ryan. I mean, did you travel in hope last night? You were there. How did you take last night's result?
Probably not in hope. I was more in fear of a proper walloping, especially after the home fixture as well. I mean, that was really before Fulham had massively hit their stride. And although it was 2-1, it was the most one-sided 2-1 you'll ever see. We almost nearly nicked a point from it, but 2-0 down in 10 minutes. And it honestly, by half-time, it looked like it would be 10 because every time Fulham went forward, they just nearly scored. So I went to this one hoping not for a 7-0 that Fulham have hit twice already, and
set your expectations.
So we didn't quite get halfway there, so it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. It was an odd one because Fulham at the moment, obviously, it's a bit of a weird place to go because they've got their big main Riverside stand is closed for renovation. Yeah. All the fans know they're going to get promoted, and not just that they're going to get promoted; they know they're going to win the league. Their team is obviously the best in the league by quite a way. And so they're so accustomed to winning that, they'll cheer a bit for a goal, but it's just that inevitability. And I think there was that from the Millwall sense as well. There was a really good away following there, but there was the inevitability of just Fulham just kind of cruising to a victory here. It's the gap between the two sides is such that even when Millwall had the chances, we couldn't score. And Fulham, who didn't, for me, really create a load necessarily. With obviously that they got 3 goals, but they didn't look as threatening as they had done in the past against us. But they got 3 goals, and it was just there you go. That's that really, and it was with the late goal as well. It's like you say, it's as cliched a performance as you can get. At a strong opening, they get the opener. Okay, second half, keep it tight, lads. Concede the first 5. And then concede one later on the counter after pressing for a goal back yourself. It's as scripted as Sex and the City, as you're saying, Nick.
I mean, Harry, Gary Rowett's game plan. I don't think it was in that clip, but I was listening to The very irritating recast app. I don't know if the club listened to this. It's very irritating, and I was trying to think why. Yeah, I find it irritating, but I do. But he was referring to our game plan, which was largely to keep it tight for 60 minutes, then start to draw the game out with our attacking bench. And my notes said from 5, we had one chance on the 5th minute, which was a Keefton Bell volley over the bar, and then we had nothing until 54 minutes when we had a Bennett shot over. I'm not sure that's keeping it tight. We do need to create chances. I mean, we did create chances when we opened up, but we don't score goals, mate, do we? I mean, that's the difference between these two sides. What's Fulham scored like 70 odd goals in the season?
Mitrovic has scored more goals than Millwall this season. That is a headline stat. That is enough. That should be enough to tell you that your transfer policy of we're looking at young and exciting forwards probably bollocks. And Gary Rowett is quickly in his interviews turning into Ian Holloway. That it's nonsensical bollocks. To try and pretend that Millwall, listening to that clip that you've played at the start of the show, pretend that you think Millwall are anything other than a mid-table championship side is pure delusion. It's pure delusion because in our last 12 games, I've gone back to the 20th of November. From the last 12 games, Millwall have 3 wins, 3 draws, 6 defeats, 12 points for a possible 36, as well as a cup loss to Crystal Palace. That is not promotion form. That is relegation form. That is looking down, not looking up form. And you weakened your own hand in the January transfer window and then complain about it. That's insanity. And, we're never going to beat Fulham. Like, take Fulham out of it. It's a wider Rowett ball philosophy, is that their football is what I was promised under Rowett, or what we're striving to achieve. And that's fine. But we're not going to get there because we don't have the funds. We don't have the ability. The players that we've signed are all over 30, have got no resale value. And we don't create anything. Like last night, we play Oliver Burke, who's on loan from Sheffield United, another championship club that probably won't get promoted this season, that we'll have to play against next season. And we're promoting their player rather than Tyler Bury. Like all these things, it's gone, Gary. We're not going to get promoted. Start planning for next season, and I could see some kind of logic in it. But there is no logic because the man is illogical because he thinks that we are going to get promoted. And there are 8 teams in front of us, and we're 9 points off the playoffs.
I mean, I take your point, and I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying, Harry, but I didn't think, Ryan, that Fulham looked unbeatable last night. They were a very good side. I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from that performance and those players. I mean, Mitrovic in any side in the division, I think, would be a promotion-winning asset. But going forwards, when we got the ball up and at them, I thought we looked, we didn't take the chances that were created. We did create chances. So, in my opinion, when we play a more how can I put it? I'm going to use a very loose attacking style. I don't know how else you'd put it. But when we get the ball forwards and we had our more creative players on the field, we looked like we could get into it. Okay, chances weren't taken. But why do we... And I think Gary Rowett said it in one of his pre-match interviews, Ryan, that you can't sit back. Well, lo and behold, we do sit back. I don't get the logic of his management at times.
Yeah, it's an odd one because it's... In that situation, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because a few weeks ago, obviously, there was COVID hit. But when we sat back against Coventry and contained them all and beat them 1-0, everyone's praising him and saying what a performance. And every time we've done that away from home and nicked those 1-0s, everyone's going, it's pure Rowett masterclass is what we had when we first came in, and they're brilliant Millwall away results. But then when we try and do that and it doesn't work, everyone goes, oh, well, this is awful. Why are we bothering trying to do that? So, it's a bit of, what do you expect? That's the way we set up away from home. Obviously, when you've got a team like Fulham, who are really very good, it's harder to do that. And, the Mitrovic point is one that will be trotted out because it's, he's a £25 million striker who is too good for the Championship. I mean, most of Fulham's team are too good for the Championship. They're an anomaly this season. And I think they're on course. I think, was it Reading's record for points is 103, 109 points, something like that. I think Fulham are on course to beat that with like 5 games to go. And Mitrovic himself, as Harry said, he scored more goals than Millwall. The championship all-time record, I think, which was set last year by Ivan Toney, is 31, and he's on 30, and we're in February. Like this year, that team is a complete anomaly. They are going to break every single championship record, and to lose to them, obviously, what's frustrating is that Blackpool turned them over 1-0. Obviously, there was the incident with the fan, Paul Parrish, who was kind of, there was a lot of reception for him yesterday, and the Fulham team have been quite good with the family and over to the end of the game. That may have thrown them off, that long delay and the kind of worry about that can get in people's heads and really impact the side. So that result in itself has other factors to it. But Millwall do lack attacking threat. It's really hard because when you're analysing where Millwall are under Gary Rowett, it feels like there's not really been any movement for two seasons now. The problem is that we can't create enough chances, and when we create them, we don't finish them. As was seen yesterday, we had 2 really good chances when we started to push for it, and both of them should have been scored. Maybe Benekobi one, he has a lot less time, so it's a bit harder, and Rodak gets out quickly. But Jed should have scored, and Jed's coming back to fitness, maybe with a bit more game time under his belt and a bit more sharpness, he scores that, but he didn't. At 2-1, that's a very different game because we were really pressing them. And I asked Raul a bit about this at the end of the game. And Harry, I kind of disagree that we've weakened our hand in January. I think we got rid of 3 players who don't play, and we've brought in 2 players who are... Burke, I think jury's out, and Freeman, I think, is a good player, depending on how fit he gets and if he can find his form. When those players were on the pitch and we had 4, and we were kind of playing that 4-2-3-1, we were much better yesterday with a back 4 than a back 3. Much better. And
but that's been the same way all season.
Not all the time. When we have
not all the time, but since Ballard's gone out, playing Pearce makes you worse. He makes Hutchinson a worse player. There is no statistically, I haven't done the research, but if someone goes back and looks at results where Pearce and Hutchinson play together, other than the commentary game, which I think Hutchinson might have played and Pearce might have played, or I might be wrong. I can't remember who was fit and who wasn't fit for COVID. When they play together, it literally is like who's the biggest dickhead. And they literally cancel each other out of making decisions because Hutchinson is the captain. I know Pearce wears the armband, but that's not really who's the captain. If you're in the dressing room and you know Pearce isn't the captain, he's not the first name on the team sheet. First name across the back 4 is Hutchinson. And playing together, last night, the goal for Mitrovic for the first one, you watch, Mitrovic just stands off both of them, just walks in, unchallenged. So simple. And what annoys me about it is I take your point that in theory we've strengthened because we've brought 2 loan players in, but they're loan players. And he talks about, what we're talking about, we're still paying their wages. So in theory, we've replaced one set of wages with another set of wages. I'd rather, I just am in this point at the moment with our rebuild, is that if we are going to rebuild. Don't do loans, don't paper over the cracks. And Rowett's management style at the moment is best described as he papers over the cracks. He picks up results when he needs to keep himself in the job. The West Brom result, if they hadn't picked up the West Brom result, when was our last win before that? We wouldn't have won in 7 games. If you don't win in 7 games, you're banging trouble in terms of keeping your job. He picks up results when he needs to, and we won't get relegated. But is that really what we want? And I know it's a wider question about Fulham. The thing is, the Millwall paradox is that last night everyone knew we were going to get beat. So a lot of people go, fuck it, go and have a go, right? There's a lot of people that would think like that. Or you sit on the other thing of, we'll keep it tight, let's try and not get embarrassed. Well, 3-0 still getting fun. It doesn't tell the whole story of the game, because I don't think actually we were that bad. But we weren't bad, but they weren't themselves. They weren't great. They didn't particularly play the way that I've seen them play against other teams. I thought they were they didn't even get out of third gear for them, and they beat us 3-0. I know they're the best side in the division, but at the end of the day, it's a wider trait is that when we go 4-3-2-1 or whatever formation you want to say around that, we create more offensively. We've only kept 3 or 4 clean sheets all season. So there's absolutely no point in playing 5 at the back because, we need to create 4 or 5 chances to get 1 goal. And we can't keep a clean sheet, so you might as well go forward.
Malone was injured last night. We don't know the nature of the injury. Well, I haven't seen it if we do know it. I must admit I was surprised with Pearce coming in, Ryan. I mean, would he have been your choice in defence? I know he's probably seen as the natural leader of the group and I don't know the man, so I don't know how good a decision that is. But I was surprised to see him because Fulham, if nothing else, are going to be powerful and pacey, and that seems to be where he struggles a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's kind of dictated a bit by the squad, the squad we have at the moment, where the players we brought in maybe aren't quite fit enough. It's not. I don't think. I agree with Harry that like playing the back five when we're not really as solid as defensively as we were, and if you've got to bring in Pearce, I don't know what's happened to Hayden Muller as well, because he, I don't think he's gone back out on loan. Unless I've completely missed that, and he wasn't in the squad, so I don't know if he's in.
He was on the bench last week when he was on the bench.
Yeah. He came back from St Johnstone, but he wasn't on the bench yesterday. So I wonder where. Pearce is pretty much gone now. He can kind of do a job when you need to, but against a side like Fulham, he is just going to get pulled apart. I mean, there was one point where he almost got drawn into a foot race. I think with Cabano, it was down the left, and you could see his face. Obviously, you're quite close to the pitch at Fulham, and you could see his face and try and turn and sprint, and it was painful. But would a back four work better? I guess the problem is there then when Freeman's not quite fit, Jed's not quite fit, you don't necessarily have someone to play in the 10. But it's surprising that when we do play four at the back, we have looked a lot better and we have looked a bit more threatening. But Rowett seems reluctant to stick with that. And against a side like Fulham, yeah, we change it late on and it makes an impact. If we started like that, who's to say how the game would have gone? But you do wonder there gets a point where do we just change it up almost for change's sake, just to see, go a run of games, go 3 or 4 games playing back four. We keep, like Harry's saying, we're not picking up a lot of wins. Go 3 or 4 games with a different formation, different system, and see if that makes an impact.
For me, the thing is that if he played four at the back at home, he'd almost gain himself some kind of respect because they're more attacking. So therefore, you'd get us behind you, gain. You're talking about, that book that says about 10% of manager swing. I wonder what the crowd's worth. Because suddenly, if we're attacking at home, you'll get the crowd involved. You get 5-10 minute that rush. You might nick a goal. You might then have something to defend. At the moment, we're very flat. We're flat at home. The atmosphere, I'm a bit fed up with it. So what's the difference of going 4 at home and 5 away? I'd rather do that. At least that makes sense in some kind of, points-based trying to nick wins away from home 1-0, whereas at home he needs to, you're playing to the gallery. You need to give some people something to get behind.
Achtung, Millwall.
Hi Nick, it's Angelo here, mate. Last night obviously disappointing result, but I was very, very pleased with the performance last night, and I think we've done really well, mate. So I think we just got to move on from last night. We all expect to lose it, but I didn't expect a performance like that. And to be honest with you, Chet should have scored. Bennett could have scored. Afobe again, another bad touch. Otherwise, he's got a shot on goal as well. We created loads of chances last night, so got to take the positives from last night. I'm not disappointed at all. And Luke Freeman, when he come on, mate, very, very impressed with him. Some really nice, skillful little touches, and looked a little bit faster than what I expected as well. So I look forward to him getting in the team for sure. But yeah, great performance, disappointing result. But yeah, let's move on. Bash up Steve Morrison's Cardiff on Saturday, and onwards and upwards, mate. Come on, you Lions. Catch you later. Bye.
Achtung, Millwall.
We are joined. Funnily enough, I was just about to refer to Aaron Paul's existential question posed a few editions ago. A big welcome to Aaron first before we go any further.
Morning. Afternoon.
Afternoon, mate. Afternoon. I was just going to refer to the question that you posed a few editions ago now as to what kind of club are we, because I'm still not sure that we are much closer to an answer to that question, because, I mean, Harry's made a good point that we've got a lot of lone players now, including Bennett Afobe, focus of our attack. We don't seem to be any closer to being able to answer your question, which is what is the point and purpose of Millwall Football Club in a football sense? What kind of club are we? Are we one that brings in the good foreign players? Are we one that promotes youth? Or what are we? We still seem to be a bit of a mix and match of all sorts. And I think last night's result reflected that, Aaron.
I feel, Uncle Nick, that firstly, Harry's point is spot on. Secondly, that we're going to need to do some sort of conduct some sort of scientific investigation. It's like one of those questions, what is the meaning of life? What are Millwall football clubs? In the same category. But I was just thinking about things yesterday. Millwall are in the position they were when we got to sort of the last 10 games of the season last season, which is what we're doing. We're not going for promotion. We're not going for playoffs. We're not going to get relegated. What's the point? So, but again, you're counting games down now. You're 17 games to go. You're counting games down. Counting games to the end of the season. Harry's point about the loan players is spot on. You've got a shitload of loan players. You've got a shitload of players who are out of contract in the summer. Who's actually there playing for the shirt? Who actually cares? You've got Oliver Burt there. Actually, had some decent sparks yesterday. Luke Freeman did nothing when he come off. Then again, he didn't. When he come on, he didn't really have much time. But who is actually there that cares? Who's actually there that is going to play for the shirt? I don't know if Benicofobia will be there next year. Don't know if any of these players will be here next year. You just wonder. And with Gary Rowett, I saw a question you posed earlier about Gary Rowett and sort of, would a lower half of the table finish him off? I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is I think he's the first Millwall manager who has actively said, we should be punching higher. We should be in the top 6. We should be pushing, rather than the likes of Neil. And I'll never ever criticise him because of the job he did. But Neil, who was always on about how the club were lucky to be in the Championship and they should be, thankful that they're staying there. Rowett's always come out and said, right, we need to be punching higher, punch higher, punch higher, punch higher, punch higher. And I think his ambitious nature will keep him there. Whether the circumstances around the club in terms of transfer funds and committees and stuff will put him off, who knows? Who knows? He himself might not want to stick around. We're sat here saying, that the club are in control, and that Millwall might not want to keep him. Gary Rowett might not want to stick around. He might get a better offer from somewhere else. Who knows? Who knows? Harry would be delighted if he did. But
absolutely.
It's just it's
not a natural fit. It's a
very strange time, isn't it? Again, as I say, you've got 17 games to go at the end of the season. Your season's basically over.
But he doesn't think it is. That's the mental thing. He thinks.
Yeah, but he's got to. I was going to come on to that point.
I don't think he can come out and say, season's over now and there's no point.
I was just going to come onto that very point because as Aaron says, and I think Gary Rowett said in his interview, 17 games to go. So he's posing the question in the dressing room as to how much desire in the nutshell, how much desire do the players have to aim higher. So if we're going to say, at the risk of Harry on our WhatsApp group said anyone that says this, it could be sectioned. So I'm going to put myself out on offer to be sectioned now, Harry. If we are going to aim for 6th spot, which is the only game in town, if you're going to be a football club in the Championship division, you have to be, if you're not fighting relegation, you've got to be looking at that 6th spot as your shot at the big time, the big stakes in the top level. And that's still, as much as it might cause laughter around the internet, 8 points away. So which is a couple of wins and you're in the mix. So if it can be that we've got the likes of Cardiff coming up, I think QPR follows as a midweek very soon afterwards. I mean, 2 big games there. I know we keep saying big games, but to some extent, I went into last night, Ryan, writing it off in my head. I think we all did. We've kind of said that already. It was a free hit, if you like. But Cardiff looks like a big game to me, Saturday, because that really will define whether that remote possibility, as I feel it is still on the table. Because if we can't beat Cardiff, then I think it is, as Aaron's just said, playing our way out for the end of the season for whatever comes next. Because we've got quite a lot of players out of contract in the summertime. I think you wrote a piece about it the other day, didn't you?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, the Cardiff game. I mean, every game kind of seems big at this point because each week you're kind of delaying what is probably the inevitable of the season's over, because you don't want it to be over in early February.
No.
But the problem is, over the last 3 seasons now, that end point of the season has been approaching a bit earlier on. You know, when Gary Rowett first took over, it was lockdown. It was when we came back and we lost the first game to Derby, and you're like, oh, we're probably not going to get playoffs then. You know, because we went, obviously there was a big gap, and the win after Forest, we always go back to that dream point of what would have happened without lockdown after that 3-0 win at Forest. But playoffs was on. Playoffs was definitely on then. And we came back, lost 3-2 to Derby, who were right down the bottom, and went, okay, probably not. Last season, you know, a little bit later on, maybe like by April or late March, we're okay, it's probably looking unachievable now. But now it's got to the point where in early February, and we're going, yeah, we're probably not. Because for me, it's not the 8 points, it's the 8 teams. It's, you can't, you know, points, they're not these abstract things that you're playing for on your own. There's also 24 other teams also picking up points. So it's the same thing with the game in hand principle. You know, you could be right down the bottom and go, oh, we've got 12 games in hand. But if you've got the worst team in the league and you lose them all, that's 0 points. So it's more about the teams in between us. And a lot of those teams are on upward trajectories. You look at Forest, you look at Middlesbrough, you look at Borough, you look at Huddersfield and QPR doing well. Blackpool even have started to put some form together. You know, there are a lot more teams, Sheffield United similarly, there are a lot more teams with a bit of an upward trajectory, and Millwall don't feel like we have that. Or, you know, and everyone will point back to, oh, but Aston Villa were way off of it, and then they went on an absolute mental winning streak. Fulham did it themselves, you know, when we were going under Harris, and they won 21 games in a row, or unbeaten in 21 games, and turned it around. But you don't feel that is within this squad's capabilities. You know, you don't want to never say never, but it does. Every game gets further and further away.
We seem too wasteful of chances, boys. I mean,
massively,
you cannot create chances like we did last night and not take one of them, which is you know, the story of the season.
We're bad at both, aren't we? We don't keep clean sheets and we don't take chances. That is the story to finishing mid-table and not doing very well. We just, I don't think we don't play with a particularly great style of play. We try and play passing football. It doesn't really work because we haven't got the players to do it, i.e. we don't have a 10. We haven't had a 10 in years. And again, we'll go into a transfer window, whenever that may be, when the season eventually ends, whether or not that ends after 2 back-to-back defeats to Cardiff and QPR, which I think it will. We will, you know, sit here, we'll have the same discussions. What are the club doing? Who are we trying to sign? We'll sign no one. And we'll moan about it all next year. And the gap between the have and the have-nots will get bigger every year, because it just will, with the financial powers that are in football. And we'll be passive in that happening. And, you know, anyone who can't see that over the last 3 years really needs to start looking at it, because we are not doing as a club, and I'm not just saying this about Go Round, the club as an entity, as a product, as in doing their jobs, whether this be with this awful recast service or other stuff, are just rudderless at the moment in terms of leadership. And I don't think, you know, from the top down, it's very good at the moment.
Yeah, that drift is something that worries me quite a bit. Like you say, Harry, I think as that point approaches earlier and earlier in the season where we're not promotion contenders, obviously it will then slip down a scale, and it will become, we're not now promotion contenders, and we will fall into relegation candidates. And like I mentioned about players out of contract, filled with loan signings, and that identity of the club. You know, I feel like we've been saying it every summer for the last 2 or 3 seasons, that this summer is massive. And, you know, we can't keep having massive summers and under delivering, because that's what then leads to relegation. The club need to take hold of whatever they want to do, make a decision, and go for it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at teams around Millwall. Swansea City have basically had the same season as Millwall. They've played the same amount of games, same amount of points, same losses, etc., etc., etc. They've actually conceded more goals and scored exactly the same. But people are glorifying Russell Martin. and this brand of football he's playing, and saying he's a great manager and he's got a plan and he's great and he's this and he's that. Would you rather be in Swansea's position or in Millwall's position right now?
Well, it's no different, is it? If they think they're seeing a style of play, that's more than what I'm seeing. So I'm not seeing any of that.
I think that's a good direct comparison as well, because it's Swansea is a club that have obviously they've had more recent success, but they have an identity of how they want to play, and they have a identity of promoting players from within. Obviously, they've got a very good academy, and they do have, along with Cardiff, Wales as
that's
their
not because they wanted to, though, Ryan. That's because their owners were crap with the purse strings and didn't want to put any money in.
No, but they have, over the last few years, they've done that really well. But the style of play is something that dates back to, when Kenny Jackett was there, or just after Kenny Jackett left, when it was Rodgers and Martinez. That dates back, 10, 15 years now, their style of play, because that's how they want to play football. And it's taken them up the leagues, back down the leagues, and their fans seem to be happy. Obviously, any fan would be happier further up the table, but they do seem to be happy playing good football.
My question to that is that Millwall have a 5-year cycle, right? Normally when we get in the Championship, every year that I've supported the club, so what am I, 32, all the time that I can remember, we go up, we have a good initial go at getting into the Premier League. 2001 springs to mind. First year back in the Champ under Harris. First year with Kenny Jackett in the Champ. We have a good go. We bring the momentum up and we keep going. We go on a magical tour. We normally end up about 8th, 9th, whatever. We have a good go. But then it falls off. It follows this pattern of maybe a player leaves. Cahill, Saville, now Wallace. Yeah, a player will leave, a key player. And Millwall never really do the next stage of the let's cement and then build. We do the cement. We sort of batten down the hatches and do this. And we're in year 5. And this feels like Jackett. This feels like Jackett of we're out of ideas and we don't know what to do. Apart from this felt like this last year, and Rowett didn't walk away. Jackett walked away. So Millwall will have to either do the thing of we're backing Gary Rowett and we need to have a really big overhaul, which they should have done last year and they didn't, and they now need to do this year. Or you need to look at what's the next stage. What do we want to be? Where do we want to go? And we don't tend to get those decision rights. And the problem is I fear if we don't make big decisions this summer, I fear we are going to be in a relegation battle, because to lose Jeb, we are going to lose Jeb Wallace. That's happening, right? So you're going to lose Jeb Wallace. Benicophobe won't be there because of Bradshaw's injured and was injured with a knee problem and took a long time to get good again after that knee problem. I am fearful of what this team looks like. The average age of the side has grown under Gary Rowett. It hasn't got lower. It has grown. We have we have a massive amount of midfielders that need to be moved on. We have one fit right back at the club. We have a right back out on loan that may never play for the club again. We have there are many crises to be dealt with, and that's a lot of work for Millwall, and we don't tend to deal with that very well.
Yeah, it comes back to that question that we've touched on already.
Sorry to cheer everyone up.
No. I mean, the 5-year thing is a regular cycle of Millwall life forever. I don't know why it should be so. But as I look back into the far distant past, most older fans will say, it goes in that kind of 5-year spin. You have a good season, bad season, moderate season, bad season, and then we get relegated again. Why should that be so? I don't know. Other clubs, I'm just looking, Aaron, at Luton sitting in 7th place. They're having a decent season, and I think they've got a manager that seems to have a vision as to what kind of football he wants to play, for better or for worse, which includes, I think, still Fred Onyedinma, doesn't it, at Luton? So, there he is sitting up there on the brink of the big time, potentially. But I mean, there's other clubs.
I talked to you about them in the summer. And
you did, yeah.
They were doing better business now.
They recruit very well.
Yeah,
they recruit so well. You look at Alan Campbell in their midfield, really good player, really, really good player. They've managed to bring in Jed Steer, the goalkeeper. They've sold on their record signing goalkeeper. They've brought in Elijah Adebayo from it was the young lad who come through Fulham, the big centre forward, brilliant player.
Yeah, excellent player.
Really, really good players in that squad. Yeah. And do you know what? They're the waifs and strays they pick up. Luton don't go out picking up players who, they'll wait and they'll try and challenge for. It's these players that are transfer listed. these players that are out of contract, these players that are on fringes of squads. They took Henry Lansbury. His career has been rejuvenated by Nathan Jones. You've got a manager there who loves the club. Literally, like, they idolise him. They worship Randy Walks on the manager because he's playing a brand of football and he does what is best for Luton Town. Now, they don't make the playoffs. You know what? They won't care. They won't care. You look at it now. This is a club that who were 5 years ago, they were in League Two.
Yeah.
5 years ago, they were in National League.
Yeah.
Now they're batting at the top end of the Championship. And honestly, once things are going well for them, they'll get a new stadium soon. They're building a new stadium. Things are going to get even better and better and better. But the recruitment side of it is ridiculous. They're constantly scouting. He's got Mick Harford out there watching game after game after game, picking up players. Random little signings they make.
I was just going to say, do you know what's a massive part of that as well? Is selling players. You know, they sold James Justin to Leicester for a massive fee. They sold Jack Stacey, who, again, Jack Stacey was a cast off from Reading. You know, picked him up, I think, on a free or very, very cheaply and sold him on for loads to Bournemouth. And that's what Millwall have been terrible at.
They don't spend money.
No, exactly. They don't spend money. Millwall need to get better at selling players. Like
no. What we do is we sign 30-year-old cast-offs from Derby, Birmingham, or Stoke. That's our transfer policy. That's our transfer policy.
For me, personally, I don't want Danny McNamara to be a Millwall player in 3 seasons. I think he's excellent. I want to have sold him for £15 million to a Premier League.
That's the truth with Marlon as well. That's how it should
exactly. Marlon should have been gone. Yeah. Cooper, we chatted about this when we were all together in the exec lounge, enjoying the fine victories of a Birmingham performance. But Jake Cooper should have been sold. Jed Wallace should have been sold. All these players, and unfortunately, when you're
probably for a collective 70 million.
Well, we could have got take those 3 players. You take those 3 players, Cooper, Marlon, and Jed. That could have been £30 million. How much are the club in debt? Oh, what, £30-40 million? That's wiped. You know, like things like that. That's how you build a club.
But have you got the chief executive from Southend who promised the stadium for 15 years and never delivered, or would rather put out a rather questionable campaign about being a tosser? You know, it's just a mess. The club's a mess. What do you want me to say? It's a mess. You know,
I have to agree. I mean, I'm intrigued and fascinated.
Just the whole thing is a mess.
Harry, your voice is getting higher and higher.
Mate, it's the COVID. I do apologise.
Oh,
I mean, I'm fascinated by the Jed saga of January. I mean, we've only just gone and he played last night and we improved when he came into the game because it's Jed.
He looked ridiculous, dude. He changed the whole thing.
Oh,
because we look dangerous suddenly.
He's such
because we know he's our best player by far, but his contract does finish in at the end of May, doesn't it?
Do you blame him for not wanting to play?
Not at all.
I don't think he did. I don't think he didn't want to play.
No, not at all.
I think the club didn't want to play him because that would damage their asset if he got injured. I think
the truth of the matter is, I know a lot of people are saying that he didn't want to play, and so asking why Gary Rat didn't start him. He wasn't fit enough.
No, he's not. He's not fit enough. He's been out for over a month.
I actually spoke to him after the game, and he said that was better than Preston. He goes, I felt better than after Preston. Like Preston,
100%.
Wasn't quite ready in terms of the fitness. Now he's ready. So, I don't think I'd ever sort of question his.
No, I wouldn't question Jed.
You've got to also look at the fact that his career's short, especially him, especially Jed. This is someone who himself will say to you, I'm not going to get a Premier League move. I need to go to a club that's getting promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think Forest
makes perfect sense to me. I mean, who wouldn't do this, listeners? Who wouldn't?
Can you? You can't.
He's going to end up at one of the relegated 3 sides, probably.
No, he'll go to Forest. I think Forest have. I think yesterday Forest have.
Cooper's named him, isn't it?
They've doubled down. Yeah, Cooper's doubled down on him as his primary target. I think it's from the report as well. Even if they go up, I think the club basically offered them a load more options, saying, well, what about this guy? What about this guy? After they couldn't get him in January, and Cooper doubled down and was like, no, he is our number 1 priority for bringing in, and I think the club have gone, okay, well, we'll do everything we can, and if that's for free.
I mean, this I think that Teddy Sheringham, doesn't it?
That lack of business acumen, because I think we might as well give it a name, is a very Millwall trait. We've never been very good at selling our players at the peak of their powers.
Which is strange because run by an accountant.
It's only
well, there we are. I mean, I think John Belson allows the chief exec Steve Kavanagh plenty of leeway to run the club, because I think he's obviously physically removed over there in Boston. So beyond funding the club, for which we're eternally grateful, he allows it to run locally, and Steve Kavanagh is the chief exec. So the point about poor business management, because I think that's what we was talking about with the Jed saga, because at the end of the day, he's going to go for nothing at the end of the year, despite coming in and palpably changing a game last night. That's poor business management. I'm not a businessman, listeners. I'm a Bolshie trade union rep. I don't know nothing about profit and loss, but that makes no sense to me.
The thing to remember, and it's a very key thing to remember, is that Millwall don't have many sellable assets, and historically haven't had many sellable assets. Probably the last time we had a talented team, the 2001-2002 team going on. Yeah. All those players went for less than the sum of their parts. Stephen Reid, Lucas Neal, Tim Cahill. All these players went for not a lot, Paul Ifill, not a lot of money. Then it's funny, and a lot of people will say that, what they want about Harris, but the players that he brought in for cheap, not the ones that he spent a lot of money on, Skalak, so on, right? But the ones that he actually bought for cheap, Wallace, Cooper, Saville,
Hutchinson, I'd say.
Right?
Yeah.
All these
even Jed.
Jed, right? These players all could have been sold for a lot of money, and Saville was sold for a lot of money, right? And they brought him back on this season,
cheapy,
and it hasn't worked out. But it was cheap. No mistake about it. It was cheap. That's good business. When you buy someone back for cheap, when you've sold them for £8 million, that's a good bit of business. But the other £7 million, we did fuck all with.
Yeah,
and we
exactly. It's not great business after you've wasted the £7 million you got.
It's not great business after you wasted the £7 million. But to sell Saville for £8 million was the right time to sell him. That's the point. But you've got that right once in the entire 100-odd years of Millwall Football Club. So it is the anomaly. The fact.
So, we've also got some shockers of deals in there. I mean, I don't want to keep banging on about Budvarsson, but it was a very expensive mistake, and so was Skalak was an expensive mistake. So yeah, I mean, I take the point that if to some level, if you buy sufficient players, you're probably going to turn up some jewels in the rough, and then you're going to come up with a few duds. That's in the nature of the game.
Everyone expected a clear out, Nick, in the summer, and again, this clear out's expected again this summer. The problem is you can keep clearing out and clearing out and clearing out, but unless you're buying half decent players to come in, what the fuck are you doing?
There's no identity, is there? That's the problem.
And that's a key thing. That's why when I go back to Swansea, I agree with your point about style of play to an extent, because when Swansea came down from the Premier League under Brad Bobley, you remember him, the bald fella?
Oh, the American.
Oh yeah, the American guy.
Brad Bobley. Yeah,
Brad Bobley soccer school.
Exactly. They lost their identity.
Yeah.
And they had to strip things back and bring in Graham Potter, who was charged with, don't worry about getting us playoffs. Don't worry about playoffs. Don't worry about anything like that. Bring back a style of football. That's it. Steve Cooper came in.
But we've never done that, Aaron. We've never done that.
We did it after Holloway. We basically went for a youth team manager and went, fuck this, fuck all the shit off. And we're going down anyway. Let's rebuild. And that took 3 years, right?
But Millwall have never had a project like that. They've never had a project.
No, we haven't.
And said,
well, that's
at the end of it, we want to achieve this. It's never been that. It's always been a case of just survive. Put enough in the meter to keep it going. That's it. There's never been a project. Now, am I saying the project is the right thing? No, because I look over the way at Wimbledon, and I look at Mark Robinson, who's the youth team manager. They haven't won a game in 12 games now. They're barely scoring any goals. Their objective was to stop playing direct football, to start playing football.
Where does that sound familiar from?
Well, to start signing younger players, and it's not working. It's not working right now, and they're a point above the relegation zone. Yes, once upon a time they were top scorers in Europe. They're a point above the relegation zone now. it's not always about the style of football. It's about just getting the fundamentals right, doing the basics right. And do you know what the sad thing is yesterday? I know people hate Gary Rowett and people don't like him. I actually think that Millwall caused Fulham a lot of problems when they went to 4 at the back yesterday.
Yeah,
they
loads.
caused Fulham a lot of problems. Yeah, the problem is when you are having a drag race, Harry, in a Rover 216, and you got a flipping M5 BMW next to you, you're gonna lose. When you've got a £30 million midfielder on the bench in Jean-Michel Seri, and you don't even need to bring him on. You don't need to bring him on.
Yeah. Aaron, the season is not judged over 2 games against Fulham's M5. We're travelling round in the Trotters Independent Traders fucking 3-wheel van. That he traded for he traded for the Capri, right? He is at the end of the day, regardless of what goes on above him, he is the face of the transfer policy, right? And he promised young and exciting forwards. I didn't think they were going to be Sheffield United's young and exciting forwards that we were going to take on loan, and I didn't think that basically we were going to be used as some kind of this. This is like what happened under Jacket, and you see the history repeat itself because. Unfortunately, fans remember shit. That's unfortunate for football clubs. They don't like it. It's a bit like when you mention that the Football League existed before 92. People don't like you to remember that, right? The fact of the matter is that Millwall do the same things in different cycles at different times. We are currently going through it's a good idea for us to get loan players in and then make our decisions. It's not great in the long run for Millwall Football Club. It never ends well. Danny McNamara is not fancied really by Gary Rowett and played out of necessity at the moment because he was playing Ryan Leonard, a midfielder, at right back for large portions of this season until he was injured. These are facts. They can be backed up by looking at team sheets. The man has a style of play in his head and the squad doesn't necessarily fit that. He doesn't like playing 4 because he's turned around and said when we have played 4, it's chaos. I like chaos. I think we thrive in it. And he said we thrived in the chaos. If he genuinely believes this is on, right? If we genuinely believe this is on, if you play 4 at the back and have a go, I'll back you. In 17 games, it's a 17-game run. We won 17 games on the bounce or run, defeated in 17 games on the bounce under Harris's first season in the Championship. So it is possible. It's madness because we're not as good a side as we were then, I don't think. Or we weren't playing as well. But if he went and had a go, I'd back him, but we don't have a go.
Achtung, Millwall.
We're going to find out if we're going to have a go very swiftly on Saturday when we face Steve Morrison's Cardiff, of course, chaps.
It's going to play up to that.
And they're crash as well.
I mean, they're in 20th position, 29 points. Beaten 15 times this time, listeners. So this is a game. If we're going to have a go, chaps, I can't think of a better occasion to demonstrate this new start, because if we're not going to make a new start Saturday, then we really are batting out our innings out late in the day. I also want to mention, just while we're on the subject of management and good business and all the rest of it, Wayne Rooney, Aaron, what a job he's doing at Derby. I know they're still adrift, but they're only 4 points adrift now, and you know it's amazing how the tone is, the style is set from the manager when he gets it right, and he's on a roll.
I mean, you know, what more can you say about them apart from they thrive upon being the underdogs? You know, Derby have been there in terms of, you know, we all know about Mel Morris spending more than, you know, they should have been spending just to break their necks to try and get to the Premier League. It never worked. And look at Wayne Rooney now picking up the pieces. It's funny, you look at first jobs in management, Frank Lampard, what an easy ride he had. Signing the players he wanted to, was just charged with getting promotion. With Wayne Rooney now, I mean, the situation he found himself in January when he wanted to sign Phil Jagielka again, and they said no. You know, and he's basically playing kid after kid after kid after kid. You know, someone made a joke the other week that at 10:15 at Derby's training ground, they come out with milk and apples. You know, because it's just kids and Richard Stearman and Curtis Davis. You look at them. twilights of their career, giving it their all. It's absolutely phenomenal to watch.
Would they be in front of us now? If they'd
They'd have what's that? 3 9s, 27, 29, 39 points. So they would be in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the penalty, I mean,
Right,
if
it's been a good season, lads. Good season.
if Wayne Rooney pulls that off, I mean, there's a long way to go yet. They're 3 games in front of. It'd be one of the great management performances, Aaron. If he pulls that off, I think.
They're 4 points of Reading, and Reading are getting the shit kicked out of them every week. Put it technically, which is hilarious to watch.
And Reading can't afford to sack their manager, which is why they haven't.
It's actually very funny to watch. Very funny to watch.
I'm really enjoying the Reading situation. I mean, to be fair, the derby odd's a bit odd because some people are kind of reveling in it, but you don't like to see necessarily a club being very close to going out of existence. No. But I am glad to see them getting punished. Obviously, it's an odd one because it's Mel Morris's fault, really. But the Reading, like the punishments, I'm really enjoying the Reading one because for me, at the end of the day, they were just cheating. They were cheating.
They both were,
and fucked up. They were both just like Reading were just willfully spending 300% of their income on their wages, and it's the retrospective action of it is really annoying because it generally punishes the wrong people, i.e. the fans, in that situation. But both of those clubs, I was very glad when Sheffield Wednesday went down last season because if you cheat, you should get punished, and you should get punished.
There should be a consequence.
The annoying thing is that I have no love for Gareth Ainsworth and Wickham, which is well known on this podcast. They should have been in the Championship this season, 100%. And these are another victim that are not talked about enough in the whole conversation. And their fans and so on and so forth. Football likes to talk about the problem directly in front of you. It don't like to talk about the subsequent victims.
I really want Reading to be a lesson for these overzealous, deep-pocketed owners who come over here from lands far and wide, going, "We're gonna get Premier League in 4 years. We're gonna get Premier League in 5 years," and then when they're getting their asses handed to them at Stoke away. Or Millwall away.
The problem is, Aaron, is that the lesson that a lot of people take is the QPR one of cheat for a years, get promoted, and then by the time the fine actually hits you, you've earned so much money that it doesn't matter.
Hold a minute, but QPR can't afford that.
When they got done, didn't they?
Yeah, but have you seen the size of the fine they got?
Yeah, but that was fine. It was like they'd already been up.
It wasn't because they still had the wage bill from the Premier League hangover. Trust me, this club has got no money. They're shopping in the bargain basement, mate.
Well, they're shopping. I tell you what, they must be shopping in Lidl, and we must be shopping at B&M Bargains because they're doing better than what we are on their money.
Do you know what? On a side note, on a complete footnote, having watched the FA Cup this week and having sort of spent a bit of time with him, I think Luke Garrard would be a very good manager for Millwall. Luke Garrard, next to him.
Who is he?
Boreham Wood.
Garrard.
It's like a university challenge of football quiz here. Listeners, Luke Garrard.
Started for 10.
Start for 10.
Can I just say,
the Boreham Wood manager. Well, I mean, there was an interesting little piece that they did before the FA Cup game. Boreham Wood beat Bournemouth, didn't they? And they had a clip where Ian Wright did a kind of prison visit. This is a few years ago, and spoke to one chap who was in one of the young offenders institutions. Who I think it was the striker.
Nile Ranger.
No, it wasn't Ranger. It was another chap. I can't think of his name. Really interesting, really well done. And I think Ian Wright does these little bits really, really well. It was a really interesting clip about turning your life around via the medium of football. He did like a prison football club thing in for guys who are inside for various reasons. And obviously, that it didn't score the goal, but it came good on the night for this. It was like it would always be like a great movie. It was that kind of, he's turned his life around via playing for Boreham Wood, and I think they have a lot of links to Feltham youth offenders and that institution over there. So I don't know if how that relates to Luke Garrard. I don't know how good a manager he is, but it was a very uplifting little piece. I'm just thinking sideways slightly. I mean, last night we saw football's better side with the applause for the chap who passed away at Fulham on 11 minutes, which I wasn't there, but I understand was well supported by the Millwall end, which I would expect nothing else to be really honest. So football has the ability to deliver great things, lads, but it also has the ability to deliver some of the nastier things like this Kurt Zuma cat video. Yeah, and for listeners who haven't seen, I can't believe anyone hasn't seen it. Is a video in his kitchen, the West Ham player kicking his cat around, and it's.
What is that about? What do you think?
I mean, they played him.
It's a grim little watch, chaps. It's a grim little.
Man.
I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of West Ham would be the same here, Harry. But I wouldn't want to see it. If he was a Millwall player, I wouldn't want to see him playing again, would you?
Well, I mean, there's outrage.
It's a sackable offence, isn't it? He's bringing the club into
disrepute.
I'm pretty sure in most players' contract there will be a line around bringing the club into disrepute around a code of conduct, and he's definitely done that. But the difference is that, you know, if you do it in your job, your employers didn't spend £30 million in you know, the summer bringing you in.
He started last night against Watford, and there's people online praising his performance. I wouldn't personally give a shit about his performance if he's done that. Let's have a score prediction for Saturday, Harry. What do you fancy? Mill versus Cardiff.
1-0 Cardiff.
1-0 Cardiff, Ryan.
I reckon a drab 1-1.
A drab 1-0.
Yeah,
we're not selling this fixture. How do you see it, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm going exactly the same as Ryan. Drab 1-1.
Yeah. Well, Nick, before we wrap up, can I put out a request of the listenership? I know don't want to get into another discussion point. You know, they've given us an hour of their time, but we mentioned it at the beginning as well. The Recast app. I'm sure this is something we might talk about later on in the season.
Yeah. No, please do. Mate,
I'm very interested to. I personally haven't used it yet, and I don't see myself using it. But it's interesting when we talk about people's attention. You know, it is something that seems very modern and forward thinking in terms of paying you for your attention effectively with content. But if anyone's got any opinions, anyone who's used it, anyone who, you know, how they think it's going, and, you know, whether they think it's good or bad, get in touch with me on Twitter, because I'm quite keen to hear what people think. I'm thinking about you know, having a look into it and hopefully speaking to some people from Recast and the club, and to kind of get a better picture of what it is and whether it's got a place on this future, and will it rival Achtung, Nick? Will it rival? Should we be on our toes?
I mean, we could probably do a separate conversation about it, Ryan, because
Definitely.
I'm intrigued by it myself, and I've got the app on my iPad downstairs. I find it, and I find it irrationally irritating, and I was trying to think, why is it irrationally irritating? And the principle of it is that you build up a kind of a screen credit, either by watching an advert or buying things, which I think that's the bit where I don't mind watching an advert, because that comes with TV since time immemorial, but I don't like paying to watch Gary Rowett tell me how, you know, we want to squeeze Fulham for 60 minutes and then open up with all guns blazing on in the last half an hour, when I know that we just got stuff 3-0 there. But I think I'd
be keen to hear what people think about it.
Ryan's DMs are open. God help him.
I am on that
brave decision, Ryan. Your DMs are open. Mate.
on that point, which I know they're not directly linked, but I was unaware of Fan Hub until very recently, and anyone that is of these sort of fan tokens and NFTs, Neymar with pictures of bored monkeys and John Terry telling you need to buy an NFT. If anyone actually doesn't understand what any of these are, there was a very good podcast by the Guardian Football Weekly a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week. It's like on their feed. Just listen to it, because I think it's very, as someone who suffered from Football Index's kind of use of football fans, I think it's very
the biggest pyramid scheme in recent
years of all time. And I think that anyone who wants to get involved in this crypto / NFT football, because what the Guardian made it very important. There's only really, you know, it's not a new technology. Bitcoin's been going for 20 years and it's still not mainstream, was my takeaway from it. So invest cautiously. It's basically gambling, but with no regulation. So, but make your own opinion. Listen to the pod with much more informed people than myself, and make your own choices.
Send all your opinions to Ryan.
When I see people tweeting about fan tokens, I cringe.
You know that Fan Hub thing. Does anyone not remember? I mean, Ryan, you won't. Harry, Nick, do you not remember? They used to sponsor a program on Love Sport.
They did.
Fan Hub, did they?
They had an app, and back then it was just
the
all the app was tracking how many grounds you went to.
Yeah, because
Now it's turned into a monetary thing.
We'll do another show about that because I was on Fan Hub briefly just to see, because I get curious about these things, listeners. I'm an old man, so what do I know about the modern world of crypto and Bitcoin and whatever? And I was on it, but then I deleted it because I found it very irritating.
It's a brave new world out there, Nick.
It is a dream. My score prediction for Saturday, just to close us, I think we're going to win it, listeners. I'm going to go for a decisive 2-goal win for the Lions on Saturday over the Steve Morrison Cardiff. Big thank you for joining me today to Harry Warren, Ryan Loftus, and the man himself, Aaron Paul. Thank you, boys.
Nice one, lad.
No problems.
And thank you to you too, dear listeners. Until the weekend, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Achtung Millwall. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a cheeky little review. Arrivederci Millwall. Till next time.
Who do you want to watch?
Hello, Nick. Barry Moon here. Just listening to your show with Neil. Brilliant, lovely one. But the Theo Robinson thing, I think you'll find we signed him from Huddersfield for 300,000, and someone else come in signed. But the Clark, what's his name? The little Clark, he was their manager at the time, and he'd already agreed to sell him to Millwall, so he wouldn't change. He come to us. He played those games. He said. Then I think he found it difficult to settle. I don't think it was any problem. I think he just found it was more difficult than he thought. So then Millwall, I think, offloaded him to Derby just so he could get back up north. I think that's the story of it. But as you say, it was a disappointment because he looked a decent player. Anyway, I love the show. Anyway, nice talking to you. Cheers, mate.